Hello and welcome to What the Flick, recapping Looking, Season 1, Episode 4, Looking for $220 an Hour. Ben Mankiewicz, Alonso Duralde. First episode with neither writing nor directing, credited to Andrew Haig or the show's creator, Michael Lannon. And I think maybe the weakest episode so far. This one felt like it was not as... solid as the other ones so far.
Yeah, I don't. I'm still having the same issue, and obviously I'm prepared. I'm going to, give it the full season. There's no question about that. I don't like these guys enough, and it's different than the way I don't like the girls of girls. I don't like them, but I'm interested in them, and I'm not.
You feel like you know them and don't like them, and these guys you don't know and you don't like.
I'm frustrated by them. There are parts of them I like very much, of course. Here, I thought maybe I felt maybe for the first time a little more connected to Patrick, a little more, but less so to everyone else.
Patrick gets the best scenes because I think his stuff with, I forget, Russell Tovey's character, the boss, the new boss, those were great. Like those are I think the best parts of the show. And I like the very ending where Patrick reconnects with Christian.
Right, the guy with the Giants hat.
Yeah. So you're right. Those are definitely the best moments of the show. But for instance, like I don't usually notice the directing of a TV show, which for some reason it's obviously essential, and as much as it is in film.
Do for a film, but you're less likely to.
Less likely with television. Yeah, I look at it in different ways. But I noticed that, for example, they actually did shoot during the massive Folsom Street Fair that happens in San Francisco every year. But it was the shots were so tight that they needn't have bothered, you could have pretty much.
There was no sense of its grandeur at all. I don't know what it is. I'd never heard of it, but I figured it out. It's a giant leather fair, and guys walk around in leather, and
it's a big crazy outdoor sort of bacchanal coom trade show, But you never get the scope of it in the way that it's shot. And we were talking afterwards with the people I was watching it with. That scene where they go through the leather store and they're holding stuff up and like goofing on it. Those are the people you hate in any leather store. The ones that have to come in and are like, whoa, look at this guy. It's like, not that I go to a lot of them, but I'm just saying, it's that general sort of looky-loo syndrome.
Right, but it seemed like conscious decision when Patrick and his boss are sort of looking over the railing or whatever it is a little bit so that they can see it. But a conscious decision made not to show it to us, but it felt like, hey, what are they looking at? Show me what they're looking at. That would have been the time for some sort of shot that gave us some scale of what the parade was.
But then even when he is finally in the thick of it, they don't capture it in a good way. But again, I really find that interesting. I love that. I really like the scene where they're working late, and it's clear that it's that we're working late and we're by ourselves, moment. And Patrick actually has the wherewithal to be like, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go home. I'm not going to mess things up with your boyfriend who is in town. Which was probably the most mature thing we've seen him do in the short run of this show so far.
Because also it was like he wanted to. This was a guy who he clearly has a lot in common with, somebody who he could actually have a relationship with if circumstances were different. But the circumstances are so different that he recognized it.
Yes. So he's doing the grown-up thing. I'm still interested in Dom, and his whole thing with Scott Bakula. I thought is it's nice. It's interesting. It's not the usual thing, and that we see I think on TV. And I like that the Scott Bakula character seems to be very, has been around the block a few times and knows what's about and what's happening and what isn't happening, and I'm curious to see how that's going to play out.
I think just what this show seems to be missing is that if you compare it to Girls, and we can because they're paired together, Girls seems to be speaking. You don't want to call. I don't want to fall into the trap where we say that Lena Dunham represents her generation. She doesn't. No one does. Right, no one does. But she's clearly found something honest and identifiable and interesting characters here. And, Looking has almost, because of its, now granted there have been, as you pointed out, and coming from straight television watching, I missed whether these other shows that were on before were important. This felt somehow important that HBO is doing a show where they're going to be almost the primary lead characters are all gay men, and then they're going to show you the things that they deal with in their lives, which you're supposed to be, you know, while you learn some things about gay culture. Mostly what you think about is, hey, look, they got the same problems the rest of us have, right? What a shock, right? But there's yet to be that moment of, oh my God, what happens next for me with any of these characters?
You know, again, this is a show that's operating with a much, you know, it's a lower flame and a slower boil, and it is, you know, it's a daring move because it's almost, it's giving you less to grab onto early on, and so I think, you know, it'll be interesting to see if they can get viewers to stick around and not sort of like wash their hands of the thing and, like, you know, deal with attrition because not enough stuff is happening.
What their numbers are? Have they held?
I don't know. I know the debut was not great. That was the one article I saw about ratings for the show. That for its first time out of the gate, it wasn't dynamite. But again, now, you know, between HBO Go and they rerun it like however many times during the week, I don't know that the opening night necessarily matters so much anymore. So yeah, I mean, you're right. There seems to be less at stake. Part of it might just be that this is a San Francisco show versus a New York show. And so I think, you know, a New York show is obviously more, you know, dog eat dog and kind of like driven. And a San Francisco show is just by its very nature going to be a little more laid back and a little more, you know, not mellow, but, you know, just, I'm not necessarily using that as an excuse, but I could see where that vibe would creep into how the characters live their lives and stuff.
Yeah, you just, you know, you want to care about what happens to them. Yeah. And somehow, even in a show like Girls, where some of the characters are really can behave in repugnant fashion, you care. These guys are not behaving poorly in any way. Not so much
self-defeatingly, maybe.
Self-defeatingly, but that's identifiably human, of course. Yeah. Again, I want to be interested in what happens more. And so far, really just Don and his ex. You know, I like her.
I don't think we're going to see the ex again.
No, his ex. No, the
woman.
The woman.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I like
great.
her, and she's around, and she's sort of. But, you know, we're not vested in what's happening in her life, so.
You know, I want to see now where the Patrick and his boss stuff goes. I want to see where the Dom and Scott Bakula stuff goes. I really hope the Augustin and the rent boy thing goes somewhere completely unpredictable, because that seems like the kind of plot thing you toss in season 4 when you've run out of all your other ideas.
Right.
Like, we're going to go out of the gate with blocked artist rent boy. It's like, okay, I'm going to trust you on this, but it's, you know, we'll talk after three or four episodes from now and see if it's working, but I'm a little skittish going into this as a plot.
You set your price point at $220 for an hour. Aren't you really saying, I'll obviously take 200? I mean, that's like what so you're building the negotiation into it.
I don't know. There's a lot of haggling, frankly. I think what 220 is 220, and, you know, you don't like it, go call somebody else.
200. You've been, all right, I'll fuck you for 200. All right.
Maybe it's like, you know, 5 for 1,000.
Right. Okay.
You know,
sure.
It's more of a bulk deal.
Yeah, so he stamps a little coupon. My 6th one is free.
And a sub sandwich.
All right, well, I mean, I'm going to keep watching, and I'm not totally uninterested. I wish there was something more dynamic in these characters.
Fair enough.
All right, thanks for watching, everybody.